So recently I've discovered that despite how simple I think it is, which it really is once you see this, a lot of people are having issues importing Midi files into the game for the MML code. They're also having issues with not being able to hear their songs. The biggest issue with this is probably setting the intensity value, which is designated with a V, which is, can't really see the little highlighted bit, but it is this little bit right here where it says V15 right after your tempo. And they're not setting their tempos, or they're not setting their tempos for every tab. And this is something that has to be done in order to keep the tracks in sync. And the editor, the 3L, let's see, what is it, 3ML editor? Yes, 3ML editor. It can read the tempo changes from track 1 just fine. So on the editor, it'll sound fine. But when you import that into the game and you don't set your tempos for every tab, and what I mean by tab is the harmonies, you don't set this for every single one, it's going to get out of sync and then it's not going to sound right. With the intensity or volume, which I'm just going to call it volume because it's designated with a V, we're going to set this to 5. Alright, so we're just going to sample this real quick, let you kind of hear the difference between setting the volumes. So this is your volume 5, but if that's not loud enough, obviously you want your song to be loud so other people will be hearing it and hopefully not annoyed by it. As you can see, it makes a big difference. The other thing is the tempo, which is designated with a T. They usually set this at the very beginning before any of your other code. So if you wanted to have multiple code or multiple tracks for this, you would have to set this for each track, and then you would add your code. Because if you didn't add this, then this track that I just randomly generated is just going to be out of sync. So if we don't have our tempo or our volume, then they're just going to be set to their default values. The default tempo is 120. So this track is going to be playing at 120 tempo, while this track is going to be playing at the proper 135 tempo. And therefore it's going to get out of sync pretty quickly. Obviously this is a poor example, but if you have a good song, then you're really going to pick it up very quickly that something's not right. So let's go ahead and close this and open up the 3ML editor, and I'll show you the process of importing a Midi file. What I like to do is I open up 2 editors, and the reason I do this is because you need to split the tracks. So let me get back to my downloads folder. We're going to work on this one. These are the settings I use, and you need to make sure this box here is checked, and also check this box. It can make a difference sometimes it really doesn't do anything, but I always check it and have had an issue with it. But when you do this, you can only select one track, and obviously this song is pretty simple. It's only got 2 tracks to pick from. A lot of MIDIs will have far more. So you just pick the first track and then hit OK, and then it's going to split that one track into all these other tracks because these tracks are basically your chords. So this would be like your main melody bit, and these are going to be your supporting chords for it. So one easy thing that'll save you just a hair bit of time is also do that same step with this one. Make sure your box is checked here. So now you don't have to copy and paste all of these. So go back to your other editor, re-import it again. This time we're going to do the next track. And this track is also split into 4, so we need to go back to this side, and we need to add 4 more tracks. You can hit Control plus T to do that, or you can just click track and then append track. So now we would just take this code here and just copy, paste everything over. So this one's pretty much done now. Now we've got everything into this single editor. And we have a total of 8 tracks, which is good because the maximum in game is 10 tracks, which we have 1 melody and 9 harmonies. So we got a total of 10 tracks that we can use. If you go over this with a song, then you're going to have to find a way to trim it down to work. So how we would go about importing this into the game is first, we need to make note of our tempo. And we need to make sure our tempo is not dynamic. A dynamic tempo would be a change in the tempo at another point in the song. So say like right here, the tempo would suddenly change to 150 or something. We would have to designate this tempo change in each of these tracks as well. Just like we have to add this to the start of each of these tracks. So we need to make note of this. Our tempo is 100. So we would take this and I'll just delete it. That way when I copy and paste everything over to the game, I don't have to worry about it being double copied. So before we close or minimize this, we're going to go to track and then optimize option and then optimize all the tracks. And what this is going to do, this is going to basically compress it back into this little bit of format here instead of having each measure designated with its own line of code. This is going to save you a lot of character space. With this song, you're saving quite a bit. With some songs, you can save upward of 1,000 characters or more. So we're going to move this over to my other monitor. You can't really see that. So our tempo was 100, so we need to set that. And we also need to make sure we have our volume or intensity set, so we're going to set that at 15. So now we're going to take this, we're going to copy, paste it into each one of these, except for the last two because we only need 8 tracks. We'll go ahead and get rid of those. We need 1 melody and 7 harmonies. So each of these already has our tempo and our intensity set. So now what we'd do is we'd go back to the editor, go to track 1, copy that, and paste it. Then go to track 2, copy it, paste it into your harmony A. Track 3, go to harmony B, and so on and so forth until you get everything copy and pasted over, which can take a little bit depending on how quick you're clicking. And that's that. So there's all our code copied over to the game. And this is basically it. We're done. So we could preview our song, make sure it sounds right. If you have one issue you might run into is your lower note chords might be overpowering your melody. To combat that, basically what you'd do is you would change your intensity down to say like 11 or 12. So that would be for our green and this light blue. We would go up here and we would change that to say 11 for these. So it's going to make those just a hair bit quieter and let our melody stick out a little bit more. Some songs work better this way, some don't. So this is basically all you need to do to import your standard run-of-the-mill single tempo song. And then you would save this as the file, so we'll just call this Skyrim theme, and it is a chorded version. What I like to do, since when I first started, I didn't really know about splitting the tracks, so all of these aren't really done that way. But now that they're being split, I like to just add chorded to the end. That way I know that it's done the way it needs to be done. Then we'll just save that. And now we have that saved on our computer, and when we compose a song, we can just go ahead and close this because I don't want to use my 10,000 note. We'll use one of these 10 or 3,000 note sheets. We would open it up, we would find our file that we're looking for, and there it is, the song we just did. And then to finish it up, you would need to name it, and then just click compose score, Click that, click yes, and then you'll have it. That's it. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to waste this sheet. But that is literally as easy as it is. Just copy and paste, click a few buttons. Now the more challenging aspect of this would be a dynamic tempo change. And this song here, oh, can't do that. Need to go back to a 10,000 note. This song here has a dynamic tempo. The song starts out at 72 and then later changes to 180. Alright, for dynamic tempo, well, of course we need to set our 72 at the beginning of every track. We also have to go through and set our tempo change of 180 for every track. This is more challenging to do. Let me bring over the editor here and I'll give you an example. Okay, so our starting tempo is going to be 72, so we're just going to go ahead and set that there just so you can maybe see that. Okay, then say later in the song, like right about here, we're going to have a tempo change to 180. Now, this is where the bigger issue is, because you're going to have to work out how these rests are, because if you add rest, it's going to obviously move notes in the song. If you take away rest, it's going to make them happen sooner or bring them closer, as you can see there. But you also have like half rest. You also have like thirds and everything else. So the higher number you go, like just a little bit further it goes forward. So for some, you might want 16. For some, you might want 18, depending on just how perfect you need to get it. Let me go ahead and import this song here. I'll show you what I'm talking about a little bit more clearly. Alright, so this is the start of the song here. So it runs from our very beginning all the way to the end of the third measure, and right at the beginning of the fourth measure we have a tempo change, which is happening right here. Okay, in the editor this change will play and it automatically applies it to everything in the editor while it's playing. But if you just copy and paste this code, it doesn't have that tempo change in the code, so therefore it's going to be playing out of sync in the in-game editor. So one thing you can do is find where your tempo change is. So at the start of the fourth measure here, look at your little signature here beside the fourth measure. We're at 4 zeros. So we need to go to track 2. We need to go to our fourth measure. And our fourth measure starts right in around here. So we would have to add our tempo change roughly in this area. But if we add it there, you can see our tempo is happening in the fourth, but it's not at the exact time we need it to happen. And if it's not at the exact time we need it to happen, then it's going to be out of sync later in the song. So to change this, you would have to work around the rest. And for this one, I believe it was a rest of 16. And that brings our tempo right to where we need it to begin. But when we do this, scroll back down here, it's going to move these notes. So keep an eye on, we're on the 11th measure and 12th measure. This actually needs to start right at the beginning of the 12th measure. So to fix this, we need to say change these. Okay, so that's not working, but a standard rest is. So, or a whole rest. But you just have to kind of play around with it and get that realigned. And once you get that realigned, then the rest of the song's back into where it needs to be. And then you have to do that for every single track. So if you have 8 tracks, you got to do it to 8 tracks. If you have more than one tempo changed, then you have to do that for every single track as well. Which can be a little daunting, and sometimes not worth it. So the easiest thing to do is to ignore the tempo change. You can just take out that tempo change there and just have a single tempo for the entire song. For some songs this might play okay, for some songs it might make them sound a little odd, but this depends on if you want to sit there and try and get it to work just perfectly, or just accept the defeat. For this song, it wasn't too bad. For some songs, it's actually quite difficult to line up where it needs to go. Because this song obviously has all these rests that you can play with. Some songs don't have that, which makes it quite a challenge. So you would have to change like quarter notes and all of that. But that's basically all there is to it. And then after you get all your tempos set, you can either do it while it's unoptimized, or you can optimize it and then work from there. So our tempo would be like right in here for this track, and then we'd have to set this rest for 16, and then this one would just be set back to just R. And that would be the optimized version of it. Sometimes it's easier to work with it this way, sometimes it's easier to work with it while it's not optimized yet. It just depends on the song. But that is basically all there is to it. Then after, of course, you set your tempos, optimize your track, copy and paste everything into the game, save your file, make sure you preview it before you actually compose it, that way you're not wasting a sheet by accident and have a mistake. And then that's it. That's all there is to it. If you have any other composing issues, then you can check out the How to Compose guide by clicking the music guide up here. It gives you some information on everything, especially if you want to create your own song instead of just importing MIDIs. If that guide doesn't exactly do it for you, there is a MuseScore creation guide from Maple itself, and it kind of breaks down what that end-game guide is and just tells you a little bit more about it. And that's basically that. That's all there is to it. If you cannot find a MIDI file for the song you're after, you've got one or two options. You have this program here, which is from MuseScore, and you can basically work. I don't exactly know how to use this program exactly. I've played around with it a little bit, but you basically just sit here and work the entire song out by hand. And you could copy sheet music over that way, which might have to happen because the automatic process doesn't work too well. I'll show you that. You can convert PDF file sheet music, which I've already tried this. Let me show you why this is not exactly going to work in your favor all the time. Sometimes it might. Some songs aren't exactly clear enough for it to convert it. So when you convert a file, it's going to give you an MSCZ file, and that is just your converted file. This, okay. So if you look at the two sheets, you can see the start of the song, the first set of notes looks correct. And then these notes are all wrong. These notes are wrong. But these are okay, but these are all wrong. And it's just going to repeat like that through the entire song. As you can see, this here is just completely wrong. So what you would have to do is you would have to go through, look at your sheet music, recreate this over here. On this, you can basically drag these around and put them where you need to put them. But you'll have to play around with this program. I don't know much about it yet. I've just recently got it. But once you get your song figured out, you can just click on export, and then you will export it as a MIDI file. Then you'll take that MIDI file and then put it into the 3ML editor. And then you'll just begin the process we just went over. All of this. But that is if you cannot find the MIDI file. A lot of songs, you might be able to find them. Just got to kind of scavenge the interwebs. There's plenty of websites. MuseScore itself has quite a bit of stuff. They also have stuff specifically for certain instruments. So if piano is not your favorite instrument and you happen to use something else in the game, then you can search for stuff specifically for that. But you can try searching here and finding sheet music, and anything on this website is going to automatically have a preview, and you'll be able to download a MIDI version of it and then just be able to use that from the get-go. Now, if you can't do that, then you're going to have to do either the sheet music conversion or hope their automatic conversion process can do it for you. Let me go close this. And I believe that covers everything. There is one more thing I'd like to cover. When you're importing a MIDI file, go into here. Say we got I don't know a good one. We'll take this one. Okay, never mind, not that one. I wanted to show you an example. Maybe this one. Alright. So sometimes when you import a MIDI file, you're going to have some that are automatically unchecked. Usually these are like your drum beats. So you don't really need to mess with these unless you are looking for the drum beat specifically. But once again, like when you convert to multiple tracks, you're going to have to do it for track 1, and then this track, and then this track, and then this track. And then just ignore this one. Now, we're going to check this, so we can just import it regularly. So, a lot of MIDIs, the very first track is this straight tempo. That's it. That's all it's going to be designating. And then it's going to be these other tracks are going to be your actual music. So that's another thing to keep an eye out for, because if you try to split this, it's not really going to do anything but just give you this, and that's just going to kind of waste a couple of minutes of your time. But other than that, that covers importing MIDIs into MapleStory too. So enjoy making some music, and that is all. Thank you for watching.